Hey crew, Mark Hatmaker here. This week's video clip of the week, just like last week's where we did some historical work, I'm going to give you a solo drill to build up, it was called putting the corks in. This is, in the old days there was a staggering variety of ways to stomp the feet, to break the shins. It's beautiful in its artistic form. But there was so many ways. What I'm going to do is give you a solo drill to build the foundation of what we're going to be looking to do the entire time. In the old lumber camps, there was something called putting corks to someone, or corking someone, and pronounced like cork, like wine cork, even though it's spelled C-A-L-K, or corking, C-A-L-K-I-N-G. I mean, you're not idiots, but I don't know why it's pronounced that way. It just is. And that the corks refer to the iron spikes that are attached to the bottom of the work boot, so you can move around on logs. You think about walking on the logs. You've seen people do the log rolling and log spinning. So the corks were the be-all, end-all to be a good logger, good lumberjack. And they were hardly ever taken off. Matter of fact, it was an insult in the old days if you were called to be barefoot. Barefoot meant you took the corks off. I mean, your boots were still on. It's not actually having the shoes off the entire time, but you know, to be barefoot, bad news. These things were so worn, even if you went into town. So well, these things that passed for towns along Skid Row, and that's where we get the name. Skid Row actually comes from a logging term, to taking, dragging logs directly through the center of town. Usually the not good part. Think about even inside, wearing them inside the brass rail that you have in a bar. That's invented for miners because they're wearing the corks inside, throwing their feet up in a log or a plank. These things eventually get chewed up by all the corking there, so the brass rail, little historical detail, that's where that thing comes from. Now, the corking is not only a lumberjack thing from the old logging days. It's turning up in so many different historical references of the foot stomping, putting the corks in. Almost every time you see a lunge beginning in some of these rough and tumble battles, or have a reference to it beginning, there's always the high line attack, whether you're shooting straight into, whether you're going high to get some sort of tie up, as they're calling it, finger collar and put to grass. More on that later. It's amazing stuff. There was always low line work going on. I mean, you're shooting to get a foot stomp along the way, like the old dead footing someone. As soon as you hit in there, we're talking about slamming hard on that foot, and where you're to pin them to the position, so you move into your upper body, your CQ, your close quarters work, or them tearing up the ankles. They're getting shot as they're moving backwards. This apparently was so common to fight with the corks on and to stomp each other, just not on the feet, all over the body. They used to, there was an old thing referred to, if you had lumberjack smallpox, it meant that you've been in a fight and you've been corked, whether that's the face, the arms, whatever, so you can imagine all these spikes hitting you. So a little bit of trivia there on that. For a solo drill, anytime you're doing some boxing, maybe for the next week, or you're doing your close quarters work, throwing maybe one of those reinforced crams, or moving off to the steam donkey elbow, what I want you to do is take two gloves. These are just standard cheap bag gloves that usually come anytime you buy yourself a bag, and you're going to throw them in the ground. Pan it down just a little bit for me, please. Just throw them there in approximate correlation of where, someone's feet would be. Okay, we don't have to fill these up with anything. Not yet. Later on, there's an ingenious way this was done to actually build some power out of it, like a heavy bag, so you can make sure every time you're stepping in, you are snapping and breaking some bones. Bring it back up for a moment, please. What we're going to do is, as we're lunging in with whatever we've got, whether we're checking, we're moving in, we're throwing the jab, what have you, you're looking to make sure when you're doing your falling step, as you would do with a good jab, Dempsey style, that you are trying to nail one of these feet with the lead foot, put the corks to it as you move in. Don't try and think about where you're splitting and leaving your upper body technique behind. You want to make sure that you're emphasizing that. You're just letting the corking be part and parcel of you moving in. So what I'm saying is, as you're moving in, I know what you'll be thinking, like, I should be throwing a jab, I'm thinking so busy, can I see the foot? No, let your peripheral take care of it. So when you start throwing more than a few rounds of like, moving in, every time, just get used to whenever you switch up your step, falling step, back and forth, you're going to make sure you can nail these feet, and then, kind of keep them closer where it does feel more like someone's feet. You get them both whether they're standing on the outside when you're close enough, or some sort of straight moving off the line for some street work, or when you're outside with the boxing. But the key is, throw those gloves down, work on every time you make an entry, see if you can throw corks to it and hit it hard. The other thing when you're throwing the corks on it, once you hit, you don't step off of it. You want a dead foot. You want to hit and fire that shot. Make sure it fires through. You can throw a second one on top because you're trying to get that momentum moving backwards and just tear that ankle all to hell. Now, lots more details in this old school foot stomping stuff, but like I said, we're going to put that on some upcoming rolls. Like, not everything in the world can be free, right? Have fun with this one, guys.